Hey everybody, it is Cam here with my February 2024 TBR list as well as my channel news. The month of January was just a kick-ass month for me with reading. I mentioned I had almost 5,000 pages, I read 9 books, and I even got started on my February TBR list with my first book by Justin Lee Anderson. And everything went super smoothly. I got a bunch of videos recorded. I even managed to get a whole bunch recorded for February. Into the channel news stuff before I actually get into my TBR. So obviously, if you've watched any of my videos, you've probably seen my shtick about that I do a lot of my reading in a tractor. I mentioned just with my end of the month one that I've had the month off. I haven't done any work because of the weather. When I'm in my tractor, I get to do a lot of reading. Well, before I got into composting, and how I got into composting in the first place is I owned dump trucks, some farm trucks, as well as like those 10-wheelers that you'll see. I even had a semi with a commodities trailer. There's a picture of it right there if you're not sure what a commodities trailer is. But I personally almost never drove truck. For the 12-ish years before I bought a composter, I almost always either sat in a front end loader or an excavator. Well, I decided just earlier this week to go in and check on my composter and tractor, do a little bit of maintenance, get everything ready for the month of February in case the weather gets a little bit better for me. And I keep my tractor and composter at the place where I have my largest contract. Well, when I went in to look at stuff, the manager came up and said, "Hey, we're shorthanded. Would it be possible for you to run the excavator for us for 2 or 3 weeks before the weather gets better?" Well, I certainly didn't really want to say yes, but when you have a customer who you do like 80% of your annual revenue through, you're going to say yes to them. If you're a small business owner, you know that good relationships are what keeps you going. And they've been a very good customer for me. They're the ones who I also had all my trucks for before I started doing the composting. So because of that, I started this week running an excavator, and I will be doing that 5 days a week, normal 8 hours a day for at least probably 2 weeks, maybe even longer if the weather stays a little bit nasty. It's actually raining outside even as I record this. I took the day off to take my daughter in for an appointment, and so that's why I'm recording this right now. But because of that, while I'm running this excavator, it's going to be a little bit harder for me to read, or at least to read consistently. There will be times where I will be able to read, like if I'm loading trucks and they have a big long haul, but for the most part, I'm a little bit busier. So it's going to be really hard for me to get another 4,500 or 5,000 pages read this month. My son is back into soccer. My daughter is doing gymnastics. So we're pretty busy, and I'm going to try and do my absolute best. I'm going to guarantee that I can get at least 4 books read, maybe a 5th, and I'm not 100% certain that I will get to all 8 of the books I'm going to put on my TBR. I'll talk about the ones I'm going to make sure I get done, and then we'll talk about ones I hope to. And if I don't get those other ones, just like I said I was going to previously, I'll just push those back and push the rest of my TBR down a little bit. I don't actually have a whole lot of books coming up that need to get out right away. Most of those I've already read. So I have a bunch of episodes scheduled to come out right before the books actually publish for ones that I really liked. All right, that's enough rambling on about my history as an excavator operator, now as a composter. Let's get into talking about the books that I plan on reading for the month. At least 3 of the 8 books that I plan on reading, maybe another 1 or 2, are actually from big publishers, most of them from Orbit. Actually, I think all of them are from Orbit, or at least an imprint from Hachette. The first one is The Bitter Crown by Justin Lee Anderson. It's the second book in the Idan saga. I read the first one, The Lost War, last year, and it was actually one of the first episodes I did from when I was just doing the podcast version that I brought back. I really liked the book, and I'm reading book 2 now, and it was actually a SPIFBO winner a few years ago before Orbit picked it up. I always talk about Orbit picks the best of these SPIFBO books up. I really think that they really do a great job of getting the ones that will appeal for what they do. And so I really liked The Lost War. It had a couple of crazy twists and turns I definitely didn't see coming. Had one that I did, and then when it had more, I was like, oh my goodness, there's so many twists and turns. not to sound ridiculous, but I really enjoyed the book. And book 2, I got an arc for that, and so I am currently reading that one. That one will come out. I'm absolutely going to get an episode recorded on this one pretty quick. Well, it'll actually probably just be mostly the Lost War that I'll talk about, because I don't want to go into spoilers. But I'll let you know what I think about The Bitter Crown when I do that. The second book that I plan on reading for the month is The Way of Idan by Philip Chase. He is actually a fairly big booktuber, and he published these as self-published as well. A whole bunch of them, I think either 2 or 3 of them came out last year. They have had some pretty positive reception from a lot of people that I know within the book tube and blogger community. And so they've been books that I've thought about reading for several months now, and I finally slotted in a time for it. I'll read the first one for sure. I probably, because of what my schedule is going to be, won't read the second and third books this month, but they are out, so it's something that I can talk about and see if I'll get too farther on. They are epic fantasy books as well. I forgot to mention the Bitter Crown is kind of like more of a grimdark style epic fantasy, like with a Scottish theme to it. I'm not sure what the theme with the Way of Idan is. I just know that they're epic fantasy and that a lot of people that I know like them, and so I wanted to get to them. The third book on my February TBR is Empire's Daughter by Marion L. Thorpe. These books came out in 2018. The first one in this series did. There are several of them. And they are like military historical fiction. They're fantasy style. Basically, an empire is being attacked from both sides, and they're at danger of falling. So they do what is the unthinkable to them, and they allow women to fight for them as well. And so there's big social upheaval and all of that stuff. And I had not heard of this one previously, but my TBR was skewing way, way too far male. I think every book that was on my list at one point was. And one thing that I talked about a lot when I used to do the podcast, and I've just been continuing to try to do, is I try to make sure that I have a good mix of male and female authors. Last month, ended up actually 6 of the 9 books I read. Of course, 3 of them were by Robin Hobb, but still had a good mix there. And I try to keep it, I'm not trying to keep it 50-50 at all times. And if there's books that I want to read and it, unbalances it, that I'm not going to be like super strict about this to make sure it's 50-50. But one thing, I think a reason why my list did skew as far as it did was a whole bunch of the books that I've got on my TBR for the next couple months are from authors who've reached out to me, or that I know in some way now from the blogging community that wanted me to read their book. And it seems like men are a whole lot more forward, and they ask you to read their books a lot more so far from what I can tell than women have. So it's something that I'm just trying to do. But I had this one recommended by 2 different people when I asked for female authors in either epic fantasy or military style fantasy. So I'm excited to read this book. The 4th book on my TBR for February is Empire of Silence by Chris Ruocchio. I think Ruocchio, Ruochio. This one is another, it's a big one. DAW is the publisher. These are huge. A couple of the Discord communities that I'm a part of have really been talking about these books for a while now. There's sci-fi space opera books, military style. They're just huge, it seems like right now. I figured I better go ahead and give this a shot now. I had a couple of people in one of the Discord groups tell me that they think it's right up my alley and I should give it a shot. So that'll be my 4th book. I'm certain that I'll get through these 4, and I'm hoping that I'm going to get through more, but those 4 for sure will get read this month. And then I'm going to go with books 5 through 8 and hope to get to, and if not, they'll get pushed back. Book 5 is The City of Stardust by Georgia Summers. This is another one of the big, Red Hook is another imprint like Orbit is with the Hachette group. I was given an arc of this one. It's kind of like more of a romantasy from what I've read. I actually forgot about it. I've had this one for several months now, and I said I was going to get this one done, but somehow it slipped through the cracks there, and it came out on January 30th. I know that romantasy is not generally my style, But after reading Rain and Ruin and really loving it, this one seems like the romantic part of it is not the primary thing, just like Rain and Ruin wasn't. So because of that, I'm hoping that that I'll enjoy that. I've really enjoyed a lot of books from categories that I previously hadn't and didn't think that I was going to enjoy. So I'm going to keep on trying to branch out a little bit and read some of those cozier books, or maybe a romance here and there. Obviously, it's not going to become my main thing. I'm still an epic fantasy person. I still like my grimdark. I like military history and things like that. But I'm going to occasionally try to branch out, and I have been for like the last almost year now. After that, I'm going to read Of Blood and Fire by Ryan Cahill. If you are a self-published or indie fantasy fan, you know that he has taken the self-pub, the indie world by storm. Ryan has several books out now. Both Patrick Leo and Mike from Mike's Book Reviews. Mike has like 100,000 subscribers. Patrick's like 40. They love his books. He's on both of their channels. He's been interviewed. He is winning awards left and right, of all of the indie fantasy stuff. They're dark, epic fantasies, and I kind of feel like if I'm an indie guy and I need to read the biggest ones of the genre. And this is the kind of, right up my alley of the dark epic fantasy. So I'm excited to give this one a shot. And we'll see about, if I really enjoy it, I'll keep reading in the series. But, later on this. The sixth book that I hope to get to is We Ride the Storm by Devin Madsen. This is another Orbit book, but I actually read this book initially when it was a Spiffbo finalist before Orbit picked it up. Just like The Lost War by Justin Lee Anderson. This was picked up by Orbit. I think it actually had already been picked up by the time I read it, but I did read the self-published version. Apparently, there were quite a few edits done to it, and so it's a little bit different. But this was a book that I really liked when I read it initially. I actually interviewed Devin when I had the podcast, and she was a great interview. And so I've been kind of trying to go back and find some of those. I kind of feel like now that I'm doing the visual and that I wanted to try to get some of these older episodes out. I do have some intentions of trying to get like some short episodes, maybe like 5 minutes or less of a bunch of those old episodes. But I think this one, since I did an author interview, I wanted to actually do a book review. And she finished the series off recently, and actually will have a second contract in a different series from Orbit coming up this fall. So I figured this was like a good time to do this. And since the series is complete, and we'll see how it goes from there. And the last book that's on my TBR for the month of February is Mushroom Blues by Adrian Gibson. This is a book, it's a debut novel for Gibson. It's a mushroom-based civilization. I think that like the mushroom people have been invaded. I'm not Mario. We're not talking Donkey Kong here. This is kind of like a crime noir style. But they've been occupied by another race that's not mushroom based. And it just has been really intriguing to me. I've seen it all over Twitter. I've talked with Adrian just a little bit. And this one I will bump up higher. So it's going to be the fifth one that I'm hoping to for sure get done. And it comes out at the beginning of March, but for some reason ARCs aren't quite ready yet. So as soon as I get that, I'm going to finish up whatever book I'm reading and then read that and then get the episode out so that it comes out, right about the time of the book coming out. And I know you might be thinking like, well, why am I always trying to do that? Well, if I really like a book and I can help sales, I know that's not my job, right? I'm not being paid by any of these people. Most of the time, I'm not even getting ARCs from them if they're available on Kindle Unlimited. I'm just reading it if I want to. But I do think that since most of these episodes that I put out for book reviews are books that I'm at least, kind of recommending, I'm not putting out any reviews for books that I dislike except for maybe the Spiffbo ones, right? And so I always want to help out where I can. I'm not going to ever tell you guys to read a book that I don't like. But if I do like a book and I think it's something that my audience might like, then I'm going to put it out. Because you know what? It does matter to help out sometimes with those early sales on whether for bigger authors, whether there's going to be a second printing, or with self-published, maybe it's going to be the difference between them continuing to write in a series or not. And if I like those books, then I always hope that there's going to be more books. So I will, whenever I can, I'll try to get out book reviews for books right about the time that they come out or a little bit before, just in case if, just can help those authors out. Once again, I'm never getting paid to do these reviews. Like I said, I don't even always get arcs for them. Sometimes I just try to pick them up on my own. As I've mentioned, I'm hoping to get 5 books done this month. Those first 4, as well as Mushroom Blues, whenever I finally get my hands on it. And then the last 3 books, if I don't get to them, they'll get pushed down into March. Right now, I have a TBR that is all the way out almost to May. I'm going off of 8 books a month. I am leaving a couple of slots open for every month, though. So I basically have 6 books for each of the next 3 months that I've got planned. And then I'll move books around as necessary. If I do get more time to read, and I get some of them done, or if not, then I'll push those back. And then I'll also leave room for some arcs that I'll get and maybe end up, reading right before and putting out episodes if I like them. Once again, I just want to make sure, since I've, just talked about the whole symbiosis thing, I will never recommend a book that I don't like. So if I'm trying to put out an episode right before a book comes out, it's going to be because I like the book and I think a certain segment of my audience would also like the book. So I hope you guys all have a wonderful month of February. Like I said, I don't know where this month's going to go. If I end up spending like 3 weeks running that excavator and I'm busy, then 5 books is going to be a really, trying hard for me. And if not, then, it only ends up being a week or 2 and I get back into that composter, then I'll get plenty of reading done and I'll get all my episodes out. Luckily, I have enough episodes recorded currently to make me all the way till like the 21st of February, doing every 3 days like I've been doing. So, it'll be pretty easy to not worry about not getting enough episodes out. Hope you guys all have a wonderful month of reading. Let me know what you think of my TBR. And I'm also open for audience members to suggest books of their own. So if you have anything you want me to read or you think that I would like, then please let me know. Thanks. Bye.